The game's individual event number 2 for the men, Heat 2, making their way out here in Dickies Arena in Fort Worth, Texas. I'm Chase Ingram, along with Adrian Conway and Mike Arsenault. Will be down on the floor joining us in a little bit. Taking on event number 2, midline climb.
Midline climb, 50 deadlifts, 50 cals on the ski erg, 50 GHD sit-ups, all separated by 3 rope climbs. And when they get to that midpoint, they're just going to turn around and do it all again in reverse, finishing with 50 deadlifts at 225.
We dedicate lane number 5.
Your starting lane assignments for event number 2, and you can see in lane number 5, for the next 3 heats in this event, will be open and a tribute to Lazar Jukic, who tragically lost his life yesterday in event number 1. And that lane will be empty. For more on that, let's go to Mike Arsenault.
Well, Chase, as we've mentioned, it's up to these athletes if they decide they want to compete today and for the rest of the weekend. Our defending champion in the men's division, Jeff Adler, decided not to compete. I spoke to him a couple of hours ago. He said he is not competing. Again, he does have the option, if he so chooses, to return to a future event later this weekend. But as of right now, Jeff Adler not competing.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, Chase, where athletes are just going to have many different ways that they're coping, that they're mourning, that they're grieving. And they're not going to feel capable of taking the floor. When we take the floor, we give everything that we have, the focus, the tenacity. There's inherent risk. There's all these things. Jeff is simply not in the place to be able to take the floor, even if that means to defend his title as Fit Summit.
And for the first time since the games, 2 returning champions not competing this weekend. Heat number 2 is off.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, our athletes up.
And it looks like Moritz is having a seat in the lane dedicated to Lazar Jukic. We've seen in a variety of different ways athletes and teams are honoring the life of Lazar. We've seen athletes stand there for a minute and then take the field. We've seen some athletes not take the competition floor in total, as we've seen our last 2 CrossFit Games champion, Laura Horvath and Jeff Adler, opting not to compete, not to take the floor.
And I just got to say here, this is where no choice is the right choice, man. It's like, do we go on and do we compete? That's what we've chosen to do as a community. That's what 80% of the athletes chose that they wanted to do. And these athletes needed to do what was best for them. And we see everybody who have different varying degrees of relationship with Lazar and how they pay tribute and show their love.
Moritz is on his feet, and he will take the floor. After that minute, tribute to his friend, Lazar Jukic. 50 reps to start at 225. The top athletes are working into their final set of 10. Samuel Cornway, that it was reported a couple days before the games that he actually had almost had to take a trip to the ER and had a massive fever before the start of the game. So just to see him out here competing, it's great to see that he's at least back on the field in competition. 3 rope climbs are done. Samuel Quant, your early leader, moving towards the 50 cals on the ski erg.
Yeah, Sam Quant.
Sam Quant with a new look.
I'll tell you what, a new look, but very consistent fitness, Chase. Quant's been around. This is 7th CrossFit Games. Finished 2nd in 2020, most notably. And, man, he's got the fitness to grind out a long chipper just like this. He's a very quiet competitor, one of those athletes that tends to keep to themselves. But I'll tell you now, he is set apart in the way that he has an ability to just creep up and within a top 5 or top 3 spot in any given event.
Sam Quant, who's had a long career, first appearance in 2016, was the youngest competitor that year, and he ended up winning an event with double DT.
I'll never forget. I was not at the CrossFit Games that year. I sat at home and was like, cool, double DT, awesome. And I was like, excuse me, who is this? Absolutely obliterating.
Samuel K1.
Yeah, the absolute just knocking the socks off the rest of the competitors in that event. And that is a grind for those of you that don't know the Hero benchmark. DT, they doubled it. And then he took off with it at the CrossFit Games in 2016.
Moritz just getting to the skier. And he'll start with his 50 cals. Again, Moritz spending that minute on the starting mat next to the open lane. Henrik Haapalainen, who just quietly had an incredible performance at the French Throwdown this year for the European semifinal. And had one of the, let's say the Finns aren't exactly a, in-your-face, intense, I would say, group of individuals. But when Henrik Haapalainen crossed the finish line with those dumbbell lunges at the French Throwdown and just stood there and nod at the crowd and be like, I can hold these all day.
Yeah.
Was one of the more big dog moves I've ever seen at a semifinal.
Yeah, I only had the pleasure of watching that online, and it gave me complete chills. And listen, we know that everyone in the CrossFit community is quite humble. The hard work, the dedication, the discipline that it takes to be on this competition floor, but to see a little swagger coming from someone like Henrik Haapalainen like that across the finish line, I was so filled with joy, I must admit.
Sam Kwan onto the GHDs, 50 reps. Slight edge on Kallian Souza. Kallian Souza's second trip to the CrossFit Games last year, 32nd place finish. Best finish at the CrossFit Games is 14th in ride. That was last year. Kallian Souza on the left part of the screen. He's actually in the UAE with fellow South American competitor Bruno Marines. In fact, they're roommates out there. But you just listen to this guy talk about CrossFit, and he just sounds like the Brazilian James Sprague. Just so much energy, loves the sport, is a fan of the sport. Usually you'll see him walking around with a cowboy hat, so he fits right in here in Texas.
Oh my, you're gonna love him in Texas. He'll be a natural. He's very smooth and steady on these GHDs, I'll give you that, making it almost look effortless. For those of you tuning in at home, don't worry, this is a huge misconception that these athletes aren't working hard at this point, because they're deep in it right now, trying to stay focused on a very specific tempo that they know they can sustain and hold on to through this halfway point that we're about to watch the athletes make their way to for these high rope climbs.
Harry Lightfoot making his way through the GHD sit-ups, currently sitting 5th overall in this heat. All athletes trying to chase down Samuel Kwant. It's his rookie debut here at the CrossFit Games. Harry Lightfoot out of Blueprint CrossFit out of the United Kingdom. Trains with Amy Kringle. He's also here individually on the women's side as a rookie. Sam Kwant, bottom part of your screen, all the way to the rope.
1 down, 2 to go.
18 feet nearly on these 3 climbs at the halfway point.
Yeah, and Sam making shorter clasps with his feet. When you watch him interlock his shoes, he's taking more grabs of the rope with his leg lock than some of the other competitors, them choosing to lift their knees higher. Chase, I wonder if this is a specific focused method because of the fatigue that he's already starting to feel build up in his hip flexors and his abs. He's trying to save that musculature to go back to those GHDs.
Sam Kwan on his 3rd climb right at the 7-minute mark, and that is just 4 seconds ahead of the pace set by Pat Vellner in heat number 1. Kallian Souza is done with his 3rd climb. He'll join 50 GHD sit-ups. Now we're working our way back towards the start line. It's a down and back chipper. 50 reps of GHDs, ski erg and deadlifts with 3 rope climbs in between.
And this is where we talked about a focused element here, is the turnaround point. It's very important to understand that you wanted to pace that first half, but now on the back half, now it's time to race. It's time to be cognizant of where your competitors are taking breaks. Where can you create more separation, or where can you close the gap? Now it's time to start to step on the afterburners.
Souza facing with him over in lane number 8. Those 2 riders up and down at the same time.
I gotta say, I like the shaped head. I mean, it's a good look.
It's more aerodynamic.
And now another one.
Just past the 8-minute mark, top part of your screen, 185 reps in. It'll show you the total number of reps these athletes are at. To get through the GHD sit-ups, the number is 209. See the athlete's name to the right, or the number of reps they're behind the lead athlete. Samuel Quant is about 10 reps till he gets that finish. Callie and Souza to the right of Samuel Quant, your overall leader, and Harry Lightfoot, left side of your screen, trying to keep pace. He's about 15 or 16 reps behind your top two. 209's the number to move on for Samuel Quant. Approaching the 9-minute mark. 5 reps left to go. Callie and Souza to Samuel Quant's left on the right side of your screen is just a handful of reps behind him.
Never a pause, never a slowing from Quant. Very steady all the way through those reps.
Samuel Quant only 15 seconds slower on that second 50 GC sit-ups than he was on the first. Callie and Souza, same time now. He's still behind him, but didn't give up any time on the GHDs as Quant is on his second rope climbs. Callian's onto his first.
Yeah, and Callian just a little bit longer in his frame, longer arms. He's scaling that rope fast.
And that goes to the height and the length there. There's a lot of strength and weaknesses between athletes, but play to the strengths of the gifts that God gave you.
That's right. Got to use them. Got to use them and abuse them when they present themselves in our sport, man, because you know, I'll tell you, you know that when something can shine for you, something's equally coming back around to humble you or scare you or knock you off your block in some way in the events to come.
Now we got a race here in the middle part of the event. It's a long chipper, 50 deadlift, ski erg, and GHDs. Work your way up and back with 3 rope climbs in between. Athletes are on this final 50 skis. In the first 50, Samuel Quant had a time split of 2:15. That was 8 seconds faster than Callie and Souza. They got there at the same time. Samuel Quant had a 1 second edge on the 50 deadlifts, but on the last set of rope climbs that we just had, Samuel Quant was a 31.8. Souza was a 24.4, as it looks like Souza and Quant are going cal for cal here on the second 50 cal skis.
Cal for cal. And here's where preparation really matters, Chase. These athletes are going rep for rep. We talked about racing on the back half of this thing. It's not just a simple thing for you to make a choice and say, hey, now I'm going to give my all and really step on the gas. Well, do you have the capacity and have you trained it in such a way that gives you the opportunity to do that? The redundancy here, this interference, the lats are blown up, the abs are blown up, the hip flexors are all messed up, man. These athletes are in it deep, and they can't just hit a gear if it's not trained.
Harry Lightfoot and Henrik Haapalainen, the top part of your screen, has moved to the skier, but it is Sam Quant and Callian Souza. Quant now back in the lead by a rep. Souza just keeping pace. The number they're getting to, 262. Top part of your screen, Quant and Callian Souza at 249. 13 reps left to go. Then we have 3 rope climbs and 50 deadlifts. Samuel Cournoyer moving to the ski. He's moving to the rope after the GHD sit-ups. 27th after the first event this morning, or yesterday morning. As we approach the 12-minute mark, time to beat is 14:14:05 by Pat Vellner, so we are just under 2 minutes before we get there as Quant gets off the ski erg and advances to the rope for the last time, and here comes Callie and Souza. Souza 7 seconds faster on the last 3 climbs, trying to chase down Samuel Quant before they get to the deadlifts. Quant up for the second rep, and here comes Callian. We may have a head-to-head race to the finish line. And these two will be chasing the time to beat a 14:14 set by Pat Vellner in the first heat, and Souza is done. Who's gonna get to the bar first? No hesitation, right to it. Here comes Callie and Souza and Sam Quant.
No belt for either of these boys. They're just lining up and picking up the barbell.
They got about 1 minute and 14 seconds if they want to take down
Cycle rate a little bit quicker for Sam Kwan on the right. But Souza still has a second lead. They advance their bar every 10. 50 total reps at 2:25 to the finish line. Just past the 13-minute mark. Samuel Kwant moves ahead by 2 reps.
And this is where some athletes, Chase, this is where you got to have a bit of a plan or you plan to fail here. Because if you're just going off of how you feel, it's going to be dark and it's going to get ugly. And you've got to have something to fall back on. Equally, you've got to be willing to play with it a little bit because you're competing head-to-head here.
45 seconds before we hit Pat Vellner's 14-14. They have 30 reps to get there. Samuel Kwan on the right. Little pause at the top. Callie and Souza will break at 25.
Kwan continues his journey. Who's going to be the first athlete to
30 reps done. 30 reps for Kwan. 20 to go. 14-minute mark.
Chase, from an efficiency standpoint, I really like Callian's movement. His feet are more narrow. It's a more straight bar path up and down. Sam's a little bit more in a wider base, and his movement's a touch more contrived, especially at the top. I think it can help Callian if he can hang on to the bar in these last 10. I think he's got a slight edge over Sam in this final finish.
Callie and Souza opting for 5 reps, but he's still keeping pace, and in fact, a little ahead of Kwan because that little break when the bar's on the floor, whereas Kwan is resting with the bar at the top, and Callie and Souza makes his move. Pat Vellner's time of 14-14 will stand. Callie and Souza holds on for the last 10, and he will set the second best time we've seen so far. At 14:48. Next best time we've seen is set by Cole Grieshaber. 15:08. Quanton will get ahead of that, so that should be good for 3rd in overall after 2 heats. 2 more heats to go, though.
And that one is for 3rd between Henry Hoppeline and Harry Lightfoot.
Harry Lightfoot, center lane. Henrik Hopalainen, 30 reps down, 20 reps to go.
You can tell here, Hopalainen in it deep, trying to make sure that he stays just under his red line. He doesn't want to fail, doesn't want to let his form completely fall off, but he's trying to stay just ahead of Lightfoot here.
Just past the 16-minute mark, 3 reps left to go for Henrik Hopalainen, and just to show the fatigue coming on, you're dropping with 2 or 3 reps left to go. It just goes to show you how tough this event is for these athletes. And Yola Kai in lane number 1 has now moved ahead of Harry Lightfoot. Another rookie out of the European semifinal. He'll get across the finish line.
Another great sign of the fatigue, man. That was a dive. That was a dive across the finish line there.
Harry Lightfoot working in his last set of 10 deadlifts. 4 reps left to go as Peter Ellis, just above his right shoulder, is moving into his final 10 reps. It's done right at 17:07. Peter Ellis, 4th place out of the Oceania region. Notorian Pro getting that extra spot this year to qualify to the CrossFit Games. See Moritz Fabig in the background as Ellis is done. 2.5 minutes till we hit that 20-minute cap. See Moritz, who started the event off with that 1-minute sit next to the empty lane in lane number 5 to pay tribute to Lazar Jukic. Moritz Wiebig has a seat. Finishes in the same spot at where he started. Next to that empty lane for Lazar Djukic is Samuel Pornway. Out at the halfway point of these last 50 deadlifts. 90 seconds left to go. $30 reps done for Sam.
And Chase, you brought this up about Sam, that, I mean, he's a vet, CrossFit Games. He doesn't show up just to play, but he's dealing with something. He's kind of making his way through a pretty bad
Seems like he always has a little thing that happens in his individual competition. He got sick a couple of years ago to start the weekend in Madison as well.
Yeah. It's another ode, and we've actually seen this, anyone that's kept up with the Olympics, is that you can have a lot of things build up in competition, from the stress, the external stressors, the injuries, the different things that can set you back, and you show up to compete hoping and praying that at the day of you get an opportunity to show your best, and sometimes this is the way it plays out. Sam's out here doing the work, doing the best of what he can. It simply isn't him at his physical best that we've ever seen.
Plenty of time to get these last couple of reps in to Sam Pornway. As Samuel takes off his games jersey and leaves it on his finish mat. Also has last name of Lazar Djukic on it. And there's the cowboy hat from Kalyan Souza. Start the event off. Moritz Wiebig.
Yeah, and this is what so much of this week is and what it's going to be. It's thinking about Lazar, making our connections, remembering him, honoring him in the unique ways that athletes are going to get an opportunity to show. And that was Moritz paying tribute to a friend.
That lane 5 will be there for the next 2 heats. Pay tribute to Lazar Djukic, who we lost yesterday. Heat 2 results, Kalyan Souza. It's a time of 14:48. And that'll be the second best time we've had, because it is Pat Vellner's 14:14 that will stand another heat.